How's it going, boys and girls? Welcome back to the channel. I was just going back on a few videos that we did on the FD, and it turns out that tomorrow is 1 year exactly that we fired up my 13B for the very first time. Yes, I knew this would happen. I knew it would take a long time, but 1 whole year to do under 5,000 Ks. It's been a long time. Anyways, regardless, I booked the car in for a tune in about 2 weeks' time. And if you haven't followed the progress of this build, make sure you go back a few videos and have a watch so you know the full story about this car. Now, I have a short list of things I need to do to this car before it's ready for the tune. So in this video, we are going to fabricate a catch can, we are going to do a compression test, we're going to service the car, we're going to hook up the boost solenoid, and we're going to end up at Raceonly for its final tune. Let's get into it. All right, so this is what's going to go in my catch can, and it has taken some time to get to this point, but most of what I'm using, they're just offcuts from what I had at home. So yeah, just a 4-inch tube that was left over from the intake, just leftover alloy plate. I bought this dome thing from Aeroflow, a bunch of speedflow fittings and lines, and some, of course, Coles stainless steel scourers. This kind of meshy stainless steel wool that I'm going to put inside the catch can to help with filtration, and this baffle that I made previously. Now this is going to be replacing my Mount Franklin catch can setup. This is the third one I've had, and I'm going to be relocating that. My new catch can is going to sit over here up against the engine with the lines going straight to the filler neck. So yeah, this is going to be my first time engineering, designing and fabricating this catch can. So if you have any feedback, let me know in the comments. Let's get into it. Now I've got my baffled secure, I'm going to add these stainless steel filters. Alright, so I've got the top plate welded on, and also I've got the dipstick tube tacked into place, and I'm pretty happy with the welds there, and it's time to move on to the base plate to get that welded in place. Now I have secured it down to this piece of thick aluminium, kind of like using it as a chill block, but if you recall, I did use this for my exhaust and it was pretty useful. I've realized as well that I've been using the wrong tungsten this whole time, so I've been welding with a red, I think it's called thoriated tungsten, and apparently it's not designed for AC welding, which is what we're doing. And I've got some lanthanated ones on order, which are probably not going to get here. So I've swapped it out for some white ones I had laying around. I think it came with a welder. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Plan for the base plate is just to move quickly. I really don't want to sit into it because any heat's going to start warping the sides here. Let's get into it. So this is my catch can, my new catch can, and I guess I am pretty happy with it given that I still don't have the right tungsten on my torch. But yeah, the welds turned out okay. You know, they're not perfect, but they're not too bad. Not too bad. I want to show you guys a bit of the thought and design I put into this catch can. So here we go. I have the Raceonly billet filler neck, sits over here. And there are two -6 ports on the side of that filler neck. So we come back here, those two lines will go into these -8 fittings. I've chosen -8 just in case in the future we decide to make this a bit bigger. Now, if you guys remember, there's actually a baffle which sits down the height of the catch can, and there's another baffled plate. So in this compartment of the baffle, there is a roll of stainless mesh just to help with filtration. And at the base, it's just a sump. There's no filtration in there. But in this compartment of the catch can, lots of holes in that baffle, and there's two more stainless steel mesh scour things. Now, I know someone's going to ask, so this dipstick actually came off my FD. Now, this is a Franklin Performance dipstick, and I've since gone back to OEM, so this just works perfectly. Now, this tube, just a bit of alloy tube I got from Bunnings, and yeah, perfect, works really well. And yeah, this is just a screw-on, aeroflow screw-on filter, which goes on top like this. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I did think about, and I do have fittings to put like a drain underneath, but I've decided not to do that. I think that I'm just going to keep it simple and pull the dipstick out, and I can use my oil extractor to suck up all that blow by. What's left to do tomorrow is to make these lines. I usually like using a bench vise, but after 5 years, I still don't have one here. But yeah, we'll see what we can do tomorrow. If not, I'll go home to where I used to live, show you guys where the magic used to happen, yeah, see you then. Mount Franklin catch can, and that's the kind of blow by you collect. When making these lines, I like to use a bench vise, but since being in this place, I actually haven't had one. I've managed to get away with using just basic hand tools, so I will show you guys how I've been doing it. But to get started, all you really need is a pipe wrench, a second pipe wrench, some sealant. It's not really necessary, but I like to put a bit on the threading, and your fittings and your hose. It's really that easy. But first of all, let me get these fittings onto the neck, and then we can start making our lines. To kick things off, I've got the catch can mounted on there, and we're going to measure the line, the length of the line we need, so that we can make a cut and then prepare the hose end for the hose. Okay, I don't know if it's just me, I think it looks a bit weird. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But anyways, the catch can's done. I'll tick that off my list. This afternoon, we are compression testing the RX-7. Now, a compression test is going to give us a really good idea of the overall health of the engine, how much compression it builds through all the seals inside the engine, and also give us data for future reference. So we know at this point in time, it's probably going to make the most compression that this engine will ever make again. This afternoon, we're just going to do the hot compression test so we know what it's like at about operating temp, and then later on tonight when it's cold, I'll come back and do the cold compression just to see what it's like. First thing we're going to do is warm up the car. Alright, so we're at operating temp. The fans kicked in a minute ago and temperature's coming down, so we're going to turn the car off. We can start our test. So this compression tester can only test one rotor at a time. So we're going to start by the rear rotor. I'm going to remove that leading plug. There's the plug, and I'm going to replace it with the pressure sensor. So this is the sensor from the compression tester kit, same thread. All right, so it's all plugged in. I'm going to turn it on. Now I've been told that the values I'm looking for are for the uncorrected values. Looking for roughly between 110 to 120 psi. So yeah, I'm gonna let this run, and then yeah, looks like we're ready to start the test. And those are the uncorrected values, so 113, 160, and 112. Pretty happy with the rear rotor. Let's move on to the front rotor housing. Front rotor, here we go. 117, 113, 111. It's a lot colder tonight. Anyways, let's do this cold crank compression test. Cool. 106, 101, 108. And this is the rear rotor. Awesome. 102, 108, 109. All right, so here are the test results. And first of all, I'm going to present the data we collected, and then we can go and analyze and interpret what we've got in front of us. So the hot compression test we did today at about 4 o'clock, it was 13 degrees. The front rotor housing, 117, 113, 111. The rear, we had 113, 116, and 112 at 288 revolutions per minute. The cold compression test we did just then, it is 9:30 and about 4 degrees outside. The front housing, we had 106, 101, 108. The rear, we had 102, 108, 109, and that's at 252 revolutions per minute. Now, these test results, I would say I'm quite happy with, and it is important to note that it is normal to have a slightly lower reading, especially when the car's cold, but also the reading is actually not very accurate, given that the car doesn't operate at 4 degrees. The car operates at the operating temperature, and there is a reason why we usually do look at the hot results. But there are also times we cannot do a hot compression test. So that's why it's important to take both these values into account and collect it as data. We should also note that when the car was hot, obviously with a higher state of charge in the battery, you're also going to have a high output at the starter motor. It produced 288 revolutions per minute for the hot test. When you take these two tables into account and we correct the values based on the revolutions per minute, the differences in the test show that there isn't actually much change in the compression test. So let's just consider the hot compression test data. What actually are we looking for? Now, the first thing we're looking for obviously is the compression reading. We want to have a reading between 110 psi to 120 psi, which we do. Just remembering that we're not just looking at the data in each individual housing, we're looking at the engine as a whole, because the test really tests the engine's ability to compress air and fuel. We want to have a balanced engine, we want to have balanced fueling, and this is what we've got. I'm very happy with these results. So yeah, that's the compression test. I can tick that off the list. There's a few things I need to do to the car before it's ready, and I probably won't show too much of that. I need to do an oil change, oil filter change, coolant flush, which is really important. I need to replace the slave cylinder on the box. I need to just reinstall the 4-port boost solenoid, but we're ready and I'm really excited. So we're going to skip straight to the day of the tune. I'm really excited. I'll see you guys then. We are back at Raceonly. We've got Omar here. Really excited because today we're going to turn up the power. I've got a bit of a target in my mind. I know numbers don't really matter, but you've always got a goal, and we'll see what it makes. Since it was last here, 1 year ago, we've done an electrical upgrade. We've done a fuel system upgrade with the surge tank.
Injector upgrade as well.
Yeah, the injector upgrade. And what else did we do? Oh, we did an exhaust.
Yes.
So yeah, so hopefully the car feels a lot better on the dyno today. Let's see what happens.
Any car that comes to the shop will always get a compression test before we do anything. It is my way of making sure that I'm not dealing with something that is not right.
I was just having a look at one of the plugs.
Yeah, I would consider this fairly typical for a bridgeport pump or rotary. Right. So one thing that I look at and think that is good, whenever you look at a plug, I know everyone looks at black and thinks bad, but we're looking for like any signs of coolant or oil. Notice it's a very mattish, dry black. So that means there's no oil residue or anything like that, which is a positive. Now, and again, with a pump fuel car, when a plug's been in there for any more than 5 minutes, you get a lot of build-up on the plug, and you can't really make any calls on whether the engine's running great or not. So you'll see now when we get into the tuning process, we'll get a base tune in the car that's probably quite rich, and then we'll put a new set of plugs in, and we'll do something called a plug read. And essentially we'll put the plugs in for one dyno run, pull them straight back out, and then have a look and see if we need to do anything special.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, something that I've kind of learned along this rotary journey is the use of the different plugs that lots of rotary guys use. So I think I've seen people use standard piston engine plugs.
we're going to use these for a plug read. So these are a cheap plug. That's why lots of people like to use these. They've got an exposed So they've got a exposed strap if you like. I don't really like these plugs to stay inside the engine. They're great for a plug read.
Yep.
And that's where it ends for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're very used to that ground electrode being like a projected tip.
Yep. Whereas you'll see when we pull out the race plug, all those plugs that you got there, they're a very different design on the top.
Yeah.
And I guess we can. Yes.
They're much different to the slotted type from the rotary engines.
So with this design, look, I am not a plug professor by any means, so I don't know why Mazda went with this style of plug. But this style of plug, obviously the gap isn't adjustable, right?
Yep.
So I mean, it's preset and you can't really do anything about it, and it's quite a larger gap. So you'll find whenever you try to make lots of power with these, you'll get an ignition misfire because it's trying to bridge a really large gap.
Yeah, that's right.
These are excellent for a standard car, but that's pretty much where it ends. Let's go have a look and see what they're doing with that compression test. All right, so you got crank speed, uncorrected numbers. So that's front, you said?
Yep.
All right, I'm just going to quickly save that and put a note in it so we know. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, so very similar numbers to the other one. Yep.
Yeah.
Which is what we want to see.
Yeah.
Normally when the engine hasn't bed in, they sound really soft. Again, listening to the videos of this cranking when the engine first got built, it sounds very different.
I would describe it as a bark.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got compression test done. So the next bit is we've just got some factory plugs in there at the moment. We're going to try and get a baseline tune on some really low boost. I think last time we had it on there was making 7 pounds.
Yeah.
Once we've got a base tune in it, it'll be probably substantially richer than it has to be. We'll then do a plug read.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So we'll get started. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
How exciting.
If you need earmuffs, they're just here.
Awesome.
Go for gold.
The whole day I've had this like weird, excited, but nervous, nervous excitement. And yeah, I can kind of feel it now in here.
I don't know if you could see that very well or not. And we'll be connected to the car in a second, and we'll go through it. So usually so this car's obviously been here before, it's been on a running tune. So before I get stuck into it, start doing power runs, I usually do a few checks. I will just jump into my fuel and oil pressure and just make sure that I have a minimum fuel pressure set. Make sure that I have a diagnostic, which is basically, this is basically going to cut me off if something is wrong.
Yeah, so engine protection, setting everything in place.
I'm just making sure if I haven't already done it, this is to make sure that it is done before I start doing runs. Because again, when something goes wrong, it usually happens so fast that I won't be able to stop before it's already damaged something. So I want the ECU to do that, make sure that we don't have any issues.
And you just add an ignition cut.
Yes, so we do an ignition cut whenever something's wrong. If it's oil pressure, I'll get it to shut the engine off completely. If it's fuel pressure, it'll just limit it at like 4,000 RPM. Now the other thing that I also do is obviously we want to remove the RPM limiter. So this isn't your map, but basically I'd go to the RPM limiter here and put whatever the RPM limiter needs to be. I usually set an RPM limiter just based on what I feel that combination is probably going to need. So your one will probably put 8,500 to start off with.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
And maybe we'll tickle it up and down depending on what the curve looks like.
Sure.
And then
are you expecting it to make more power past 8.5?
Usually with a Bridgeport factory intake manifold, I tend to find by 8,500 they start to level off and go down. Yeah. And that's a limitation of the intake manifold, not the engine.
Sure.
So if we took that same engine and put, say, like a Pro J on there, that engine will rev to like 10-250 before it levels off.
Yeah. So the manifold design itself or the throttle body?
No, it's the manifold design. Yeah, it's not so much and I could be wrong on this, it's not so much a quantity of air, it's more the manifold design, so runner length and things like that. Correct. Yeah. So one last thing I do before I get stuck into it is overboost. So again, one of the scariest things about doing a power run for the first time is worrying that someone's got the boost lines wrong, off, whatever it may be. Just have a boost cut in there. So if you're targeting, say, 7 pounds, it'll cut at 10 if it overshoots. If it's targeting 14, it'll cut at 16. So they're just a couple of things I'll do before I get started. Just makes me feel comfortable that I'm not going to end up with something bad happen in the first run. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to get cracking on doing that and we'll get started. Okay, so we've just worked out what our minimum boost is.
Yep.
And that is, looks like roughly 12 to 13 pounds of boost. That's the lowest we can go.
Oh, I see.
Now, it can either be that there's too much spring,
Yeah.
or it can just be that this engine is outflowing that manifold wastegate setup.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. The only thing we'll have to do is the current plugs that are in the car are a 7 heat range for the leading and 9. That's too hot for that boost on pump fuel.
Sure.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put our piston plugs in there.
Yep.
And we're going to use that to get my baseline.
Awesome.
And then we can move to the plug read. But so far everything seems like it's going to plan.
Awesome. Sounds great.
It does sound really loud. Yes.
Rowdy. It does sound loud. Unfortunately, I thought the new exhaust would be quieter, but I just don't think it's the case. Yeah, so we've just changed out the set of plugs. We're gonna go again. We're gonna do one run, and then we're gonna do another plug read.
So we're dealing with a bit of boost creep just to catch you guys up, and it doesn't look very major at the moment, but it's definitely there. And essentially, I think while this would have worked with the standard engine, now that we've got a higher flowing Bridgeport engine, it just can't keep up with this engine.
Yeah.
Now, if it was you can have a look. So you can see the white line, that's boost, and as you can see towards the end, it starts to trend upwards, which it shouldn't.
You kind of see it here as well as it starts to shoot up. So yeah, Omar was just saying that this has a precision, I think 44mm wastegate.
Yeah.
They're just getting outflowed.
Yeah.
on a
Usually,
Bridgeport.
my experience on a Bridgeport, 44 would be small. Even a 50 would be marginal.
Yeah.
And again, when you're trying to run lower boost, it really shows its head. When you're like, if our target boost level here was 20 pounds, we would be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So lots of people don't understand it, but to run a lower boost, you need a bigger wastegate. Bigger wastegates are not for higher boost. It's quite the contrary. And that explains as well, like again, I've got our target fuel mixture quite rich, but even then it is considerably richer than it should be.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that for now because we haven't done a plug read yet, so I don't want to trim back any fuel. So I think we're ready to do a plug read.
Yep.
Mixture's in the safe place. I can do a pull to 7,000. So we'll get the new plugs in, and they'll be just our dummy piston plugs. We'll do a plug read on them. If we're happy, we'll make some changes. Usually the changes we're looking for will be cylinder trims or, rotor trims. Sorry, I know
trims.
people will get upset about me saying cylinder trims. So we'll do trims per rotor.
Yeah.
And we'll also do another plug read when we put the race plugs in.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, because every plug read is an opportunity to see how happy the engine is inside.
Yeah, that's great.
Did
you notice much difference with a higher heat rating plug?
Look, let's lay over the two curves. For me, no. Look, that question I find tends to be more on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes you see a big difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't. So I'm just going to lay the two graphs over. So that was factory plugs to
Factory plugs on the
colder
green.
plug. You can see there's not a real big change in my opinion.
Omar said I was super slow at changing plugs, so yeah, he said we should do a time lapse. Here we go. Awesome.
All right, so we did one run on these plugs, and we're just going to have a look. So we're just looking for colouring. We're also looking for a mark on the strap. It's probably going to be hard to see in the camera.
Yeah.
There's a lot more purple on the rear plug, which is this one, than there is on this plug here. And that might seem surprising to most, but that's actually quite typical. On a factory intake manifold, the rear rotor will always be the leaner one, and therefore always be the hotter one.
Yeah.
So if we push this engine right to its limit and went lean on it, it will most likely break the back rotor. So by doing this plug read now, we get to see that there's definitely more heat on this plug, and what I'll be doing is adding fuel to this rotor. Or cylinder. Is that okay? Can I use cylinder?
You can't use that. Sorry, it's a rotary.
So I'm going to add more fuel to this rotor.
Yeah.
And we're going to do one more plug read using your race box. Okay. It looks considerable. Sorry, we're just talking plugs. Like you look at this one. This one's got purple on one side of the face, but that's purple all the way around. And it's a deep purple. You know, and don't forget, this is just one run, right? So that's a lot of color there on that plug. So I've put 6 in the back. And again, some of that is experience as well. Like I've done it a few times, and that tends to get us close. And looking at the strap, looks like our ignition timing's pretty close to where it needs to be. And look, again, if this was ethanol, we could probably push that a little bit more, but because it's pump fuel, we've got to be conservative. And that ends up being, I think we're on 10 degrees of timing, which is not a lot, but you know, nonetheless. All right, time for food.
So far we're at 393 at 7,700 RPM, and there's plenty more in it. Yeah, we've just done another plug read, and now we've got our racing plugs in there. See what happens.
See what the other one looks like. There's not a lot of heat on that plug. Barely any color at all.
Yeah, it looks.
Which is okay, but it also means like there's not much carbon on there as well, as you can see.
Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah, so see this. To me, I think we've got a bad coil. We'll see what the other one looks like. Look at the difference.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's from rotary.
Straight away, look at that. This is, even though I've added that fuel, this is showing much more heat still, because this coil's got something wrong with it.
Here we go again. Put the old plugs back in. Let's see what she does.
I think we got a bad coil. Sounds different.
Yeah.
I think we have bad coils.
Yeah.
Like we're down almost 40 horsepower measuring at the same spots, that is.
Yeah.
I backed off because I'm like, we're 40 horsepower off.
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
I understand, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And nothing's really changed. So to me, something's not right there. I'm gonna make one more change, but I think we've got a bad set of coils.
Yeah, show you the horsepower difference right over here. That's why I'm my back.
Yeah, that's right in the middle. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. At least we know what's up.
So on that run, I just pulled out a little bit of fuel just to see if the fuel made much of a difference. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's less than 3 or 4 horsepower. That's not, I mean, we've literally gone from here to there. It's very considerable, and I can feel it in the car. It feels like it's holding back. It doesn't feel smooth anymore.
Yeah.
So I think we may have killed the coils on this run.
What do you want to give it a go? It's kind of failed on us.
Look, we spoke about it and we said it was a possibility, but we did say we'd give it a try because
Yeah.
you know, if the coils are good, they can work. And obviously, it did work
For a few runs.
For a few runs.
Yeah.
But obviously, once we gave them a bit of juice up top, because obviously with coils, the more fuel you put in the engine, the more power you make, the more current they draw.
Yeah.
And if they are going to fail, that's usually what will make them
Yeah,
fail.
that's
Like
right.
to me, just listening to the car, it feels like it's idling different. It's not just under power. Like it feels like a coil's completely stopped working. You can see on the plugs, like the back rotor is a different color to the front, and it wasn't like that before. There was some coloring on the plug, but we didn't see carbon on one and no carbon on the other.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so something's definitely going on there. So that pretty much smacks our dyno session in the butt.
Oh well,
They're
not always smooth. I said that last time. Yeah.
So I'd say you're up for an ignition upgrade of some sort. We do.
Just happens you have a kit.
We do a bolt-on kit for these. I mean, again, no surprise because it's so common with these. So we do a bolt-on kit that relocates the coils down to the chassis rail, and it comes with a wiring harness, leads, and it also deletes the OEM igniter. So you no longer require the OEM igniter. Really easy to install. I guess if you go down that track, you'll find that out.
Yep.
I would say once we're done with that, we should be back here and we should be about done.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So yeah.
We'll be back soon. Anyways, Omar, thanks a lot for your time.
No worries, dude.
Didn't go to plan, but we still made decent power today.
We made some good power. We just couldn't make it over and over, and that's the thing about having good parts
And
on a car.
nothing really
That's the
broke.
difference. No,
so, which is good.
No, we're good.
Yeah,
we're good.
We'll be back for more.